Tonight's event is being live streamed by Stuart from Stoic Media, and our sound is through Jordan of Black Creek Music and Capital 33. We are also pleased that tonight's debate is being signed thanks to Leslie McMillan. So thank you very much, Leslie. We appreciate the support of our technical team. Because of them, you can replay this debate on YouTube and access it through the Simcoe Chamber website. This is a rundown of how tonight will play out. Each candidate will start with a 2-minute introduction. This will allow you to learn more about them and their party's platform. We had candidates draw for the order earlier this evening. When we get to the question round, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the question. Once everyone has responded, each candidate may give a 30-second rebuttal if they choose. This stands for all questions, with the exception of question number 1. Please, candidates, be respectful and use the follow-up time to add new information that you may have missed. Once we finish the round, we will move forward on to the next question. We will start this round alphabetically, which is the order they appear on stage. At the end of the 2-minute question segment, each candidate will have a 2-minute closing statement. Again, the order was drawn prior to the start of this evening's event. One thing that we are going to be really mindful of is the timing. Let me introduce our official timekeepers down there. So we've got the Simcoe Chamber's Second Vice President, Brenda Cooper, and then her pal is helping her out tonight. So ladies, both kind of wave. All right. So the bell you'll hear when a candidate has 10 seconds left, and then another bell will ring at the end. So give the example of the 10-minute or 10-second warning, and then give a you need to stop talking warning. Perfect, there we go. Candidates, please observe the timelines. At the end of each allotted time, if necessary, your microphone will be cut out, and the moderator will move on to the next question. I don't know if we can actually do that. We just say that. This is a very important point for you. Our audience here at the Legion, the event is being live streamed, so please hold your applause until the end of the debate. We ask that you don't cheer, clap, or the other one that I really like is, or cause any ruckus. I mean, this is the second time in a few months that I've used the word ruckus. We want to be respectful to all candidates this evening. We also want to make sure that the audience here and at home can hear what the candidates have to say. Please turn off your cell phones now. Ringing phones along with having conversation in the audience is very distracting. Water is being sold at the bar if you would like a bottle of water, and if you need to go to the washrooms, it's along the right-hand side, and right near the exit sign up along in there is where the washroom is. So we're going to start. So let's start with the candidates' opening remarks, and Colin, it looks like you're starting off this evening.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Colin Walsh, and I'm honored to be your Liberal candidate for Haldimand Norfolk. This isn't just where I live, it's home. It's where I'm raising my family and where I've spent the last 12 years teaching French across Norfolk County. I've worked with students and families who care deeply about their future and their community. I'm not a career politician. I'm a teacher, a parent, and someone who's committed to this region. When this all started, I was just frustrated and trying to volunteer to help out where I could. When I asked who our candidate was, they told me they didn't have one. They asked if I was interested, and the first I was like, wait a minute, hold on. So I called my wife on the drive home. When I got home, I went to talk to my daughter because I needed to make sure that she was okay with it, knowing how hard it could be and the fact that we would be constantly in the public eye. But she reminded me of the importance of standing up for people who don't have a voice. She told me, you have to be an upstander. So you have to do this, Dad. And that's how we got here today. We are living through frightening and uncertain times. I've seen how hard it's getting. Families trying to stretch their paycheck further, young people losing hope of ever owning a home, seniors facing affordability issues, and farmers bracing for the impact of global uncertainty. Tariffs from the United States are threatening our industries and our jobs. Inflation continues to pressure families. That's why this election is one of the most important in our lifetime. We need steady leadership that puts Canadians first. I'm proud to stand with Mark Carney and the Liberal team, leaders with a serious plan to build more homes, cut taxes for the middle class, protect Canadian identity, and stand up to economic threats from abroad. Haldimand Norfolk deserves someone who listens, who understands our community and shows up, not just during elections, but every day. I'm ready to be that voice, and together we can build a stronger, more secure, more hopeful future.
Okay, over to Lily.
My name is Lily Eggink, and I am representing the Christian Heritage Party of Canada. I'm from Port Dover. It will be evident tonight that I am not a well-versed politician. I'm a single mother, small business owner, and missionary here to fight for what is right. Here I am, participating in politics because of my concern for Canadian governance, which has clearly ignored the preamble to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which reads, "Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law." For over 35 years, this preamble has been CHP's solid and unchanging foundation. There are some people who will accuse me of splitting the vote, but according to the last election, Leslyn Lewis could lose 12,439 votes to the Christian Heritage Party and still win her seat. Now, if 12,000 Christians voted according to their beliefs instead of according to their fears, if they voted for a party that upholds the same values as they hold, rather than voting for the lesser of two evils, what kind of message would that send to the government? It would tell them that Christians care about the lives of the preborn, elderly, and disabled, and that we are not in agreement with killing humans of any age, size, or ability. It would tell them that Christians stand up for biblical marriage and two genders as God created them. It would tell all of Canada that we are not afraid because we have a God who is strong and mighty, and his purpose will stand if only we stand with him. That is the message I will be sending with my vote. That is why I'm running as a candidate for the Christian Heritage Party of Canada.
Okay, to Shannon.
Hello, my name is Shannon Horner-Shepherd. I, like Lily, am not a career politician. I'm a steel worker. I've been a steel worker for 27 years. I'm actually a second-generation steel worker. My dad is a retiree from Stelco, and I'm a proud mom of a third-generation steel worker. One of the reasons that I decided that it was a good time to step up to the plate is that I think that working families really need a voice. In Haldimand Norfolk, we need representation that actually knows how we live, eat, and breathe in our community. And I don't believe that we've really truly had that. I think it's important to make sure that our voices are heard. Rural Canadians seem to be left out in what is considered to be the political race. I think that I bring a unique perspective. I spent my years growing up working in agriculture, like many of us did. A lot of us have worked on tobacco farms. I think that agriculture is incredibly important to this area, and I want to make sure that our voices are heard in Ottawa. I'm a single mom. I have 4 grown kids. One of my children has a severe disability, but I think that over the years, she has taught me more than I've ever learned from any able-bodied human being. I've spent 17 years fighting for the steelworkers in my union. I advocated for health and safety for many, many years. I think everyone has the right to go to work and come home at the end of the day in the same condition that they went to work in. So I'm running because I think that we deserve better here in Haldimand Norfolk. I think we need someone in Ottawa who understands how we feel, how we believe, and ensures that our voices are constantly heard every day in the Parliament. So thank you very much.
Okay, and now Leslyn.
Hello, my name is Leslyn Lewis, the candidate for the Conservative Party. Canada is at a crossroads, and when you're on a journey and you come to a crossroads, we must assess which direction we're going in. The path that the Liberals have taken us down has been a radical and reckless path, undermining the very foundations of our nation. This dark Liberal decade has brought hardship for many Canadians. Canadians are going to food banks in the millions. In Haldimand, Norfolk, despite being the top agricultural producer in the nation, 1 in 6 residents are experiencing food insecurity. Young people have given up on the dream of ever owning a home. It now takes $208,000 to qualify to own a home in this county. The Trudeau Carney leadership has made life more difficult. It has made our country put into a state of vulnerability. They have raised our taxes, punished hardworking farmers, and created a vulnerable environment where our neighbors feel that they can capitalize on us by imposing tariffs. Only Conservatives has a serious plan to counter Trump's tariffs. Conservatives will make life more affordable by reducing taxes and eliminating the carbon tax for everyone, restoring safe streets, and getting tough on violent crime. We will respect our seniors and our veterans, and we will create a strong economy. I am a proud resident of Dunnville. My husband, children, and myself live and work in the community. For the last 4 years, I've been honored to represent you as your Member of Parliament. I have helped many residents navigate the negative impact of harsh Liberal policies. And if you so select me again, I would be honored to represent you once again in Ottawa and continue the fight for a prosperous Haldimand, Norfolk.
Okay, now, Henry?
Good evening. A nation must be based on a sense of belonging, of participating in a common national project, and sharing the same values. The role of government is to protect its citizens and provide a legal framework that allows for a free, functioning society in which all people can flourish. Our governments have not done a very good job lately. Our border has been opened up to mass immigration that is putting a strain on society and all of our infrastructure, including healthcare and housing in particular. Instead of uniting and protecting us, they've gone the route of division and prosecution. It seems the best strategy today is to claim victimhood status and special rights therefrom. And because wherever there is a victim, there is of course an oppressor, and that person must be punished for offenses that include microaggressions. This stuff is coming from the government. Our money has been recklessly spent and wasted promoting development in foreign countries, promoting wild ideologies that have no foundation in facts, and promoting death and destruction in conflicts that have no benefit to Canada. Meanwhile, homelessness increases, hospital wait times increase, and our standard of living falls as inflation destroys our dollar's buying power. The freedom to stand up and say state basic facts about biology, about war, has been discouraged by social cancellation and even legislation. The People's Party of Canada offers to change the course of this country is on. As the name suggests, we are for the people of Canada, not for UN principles of international growth, migration, or emission controls. The best thing to do right now is to put a moratorium on new permanent residents until such time as the housing market has cooled down and the economic and social effects of mass migration has been neutralized and reversed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now Nathan.
Hi there, my name's Nathan Hawkins. I'm here representing the Green Party of Canada. This is my first time ever running in a political campaign. It's been 3 weeks for me now, so this is all new and fresh to me, so forgive me if I flub or maybe not know how to answer a certain question. I will take notes and make sure to get back to whoever it is. I'd like to thank both Delhi and Simcoe Districts of Commerce for putting this on today, as well as Cornerstone, all the local media outlets that are here today, who I feel they've really lost their voices on multimedia with some of the Liberals' mess-ups with Facebook, at least. A little bit about me. No, I do not live in the riding. I currently live in Kitchener. I was born in Brantford. Lived in Brantford till I was 26 years old when I moved to Kitchener for work opportunities and to start my family. I'm now a proud grandfather of 2 grandchildren. Simcoe, all this area, Haldimand, Norfolk, I was a fisherman growing up, so I've fished about every spot along the Grand River there is. I've cottaged everywhere around here, from Long Point, Turkey Point. This is one of the most beautiful areas in Ontario, if not the country. And it has some of the friendliest people I've ever met as well. I've always considered it a home away from home. Planning on retiring here one day, hopefully. There's a lot to offer here. We need to secure our agriculture sector, there we go, from the threats of sprawl that are coming in. We're seeing a lot of MZOs being forced in my area where I am right now. There's land expropriation going on in Wilmot. There's been a 2 million square foot warehouse built near the little town of Blair. It's an eyesore, and I don't want to see that happening here. There's room for both, but we need to find the right spots to do it. Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to get on to the questions. There was some clapping after everybody did their opening remarks. I'm going to ask everybody not to do any clapping because it's going to add on to time as we go through the questions, and we have a lot of questions here, and it is a little bit distracting. So again, you have 1 minute to answer your question, and this is the first question that we've got. If you're elected and you have one shot to put a bill on the floor, what would it be? And we're going to be starting with Henry.
Okay, one shot to put a bill on the floor. That's a good one. I don't know, it might have something to do with the media, you know. Probably, you know, well, it is part of the PPC platform to do away with any funding of the mainstream media or any media, to keep media fair. Can you hear me, sir? If I had a one shot, I would put forward a bill to repeal any sort of funding to media from the government. It should be independent and fair and not funded by the government. That's part of the PPC platform. It's the first thing that came to mind.
Okay, and sorry I messed up the first one. Lily, you were supposed to start, so I'm going to go to you. Sorry, they're going to fire me.
So the CHP is the only federal party with a policy protecting human life from conception. Abortion is the deliberate taking of innocent human life. There are approximately 100,000 Canadians aborted each year. 60,000 of these abortions are the result of coercion, not free choice. Abortion is not a charter-protected right. Canada has no laws on abortion. The CHP believes abortion should be defunded, not defended. Abortion is a violation of God's law against the killing of the innocent and a violation of women who have been told their baby is only a cluster of cells or tissue rather than a human being. The CHP would provide counseling for all unplanned pregnancies. The mothers would be taught of in utero development and the health hazards of abortion. They would also be offered assistance and support during their pregnancies. Thank you.
Okay, over to Nathan.
I just touched on it a second ago, so I'd probably try to put a bill in to go against provincial governments that are putting in MZOs right now, which are ministry zoning orders. These are silencing people's voices in their communities. They take away your right to counsel. We need to work together to find solutions for both agriculture and industrial areas and housing, all of the above. We can't keep letting provincial governments and municipal governments override that with a piece of paper. It just allows for a lot of bad actors to get involved, in my opinion. That's pretty much it.
Okay, Shannon.
If I had the opportunity to put a bill on, I think one of the things that is most important to all of us is health care. So I would put a bill forward that would ensure that all Canadians have the right to free and accessible health care. Because without our health care, we really have nothing. I would make sure that pharmacare, as we all know, the NDP platform is for pharmacare, so access to medicines that people need would be available at low cost or free. It's important that we ensure that we maintain and look after everybody, all our vulnerable sector, our elderly, our young. So I would ensure that one thing that people shouldn't have to worry about is whether or not they're going to have access to health care. And by doing that, I would make sure we had a bill that protected that and made it affordable or free for pharmacare and healthcare.
Okay, Leslyn.
Thank you. If I were to put a bill forward, that bill would focus on affordability. I have knocked on thousands of doors within the past few months, and I am hearing the same thing over and over, that people cannot afford to, they're choosing between heating their homes and eating. In addition, this affects every aspect of our lives. We are $1.3 trillion in debt, and that affects how much we can transfer to the provinces for healthcare. It affects the carbon tax. The carbon tax is something that is impacted on every aspect of our life. And so I think it's very important that we put a bill forward that would prevent governments from unduly taxing citizens.
Okay, thank you. Colin.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to cover my sheet here. I was thinking if I could put a bill forward, it would definitely be for seniors and affordability and housing in Haldeman, Norfolk, especially because thinking in terms of representing our community, it has to be something that's good for our community. And I'm seeing and hearing from a lot of members that some have told me they're $300 away from being homeless. And that to me is awful. Others are telling me that they don't have a place to stay, and they're staying with relatives or they're staying in motels because the cost to actually afford a home or afford somewhere in our community that is of good standards and that is affordable is difficult to find. So I would propose that in terms of development of housing proposals, that they include affordable housing within, and that government has to step in to help incentivize business to actually move in this direction.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next question, and remember that you can have the opportunity to have a rebuttal after this question. Why is your party the best one to lead us through the trade war with the USA and then through the upcoming trade negotiations? So we will be starting with Henry.
Certainly. The PPC is the best party because they're not antagonistic towards Trump. It's a big mistake to want to pick a fight with Donald Trump. Not just because he's Donald Trump, but because the United States is 10 times our size. To get into a trade war with the United States is a losing battle. It's not a good idea. What our government has done now by introducing tit-for-tat tariffs is tax you. You know, not only did Trump tax his own people on goods that you sell there, now you get to pay a tax for anything you want to buy from the States. How does that help you? It's not a good idea. And here's proof. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. What did Trump do just yesterday? He dropped all the tariffs on countries that didn't retaliate with tariffs, which is not Canada. So PPC is the way to go.
Okay, Nathan.
I'm going to not use the President of the United States name at all. I find his behavior is it's very unwarranted to all countries around the world, especially his closest neighbor right here in Canada. The Green Party has a plan in place. You can check it out on greenparty.ca if you want. It was just announced yesterday with some of these plans to counter the tariffs. But, you know, everyone's talking about elbows up. We need arms out as well, because not all Americans are bad. A lot of my American friends have been sending me messages of apology for what is going on in their country right now. And I think the best offense is a good defense, if we like to use hockey terms. We need to see what's coming at us, not overreact, because we don't need him coming back twice as hard at us.
Okay, and Shannon.
With regards to tariffs, I mean, I work in the steel industry, so tariffs are kind of near and dear to my heart about, you know, the concern of how that works. And when we start, you know, we all know the NDP will say, we will never be the 51st state. That's not going to happen. We, as Canadians, are proud, and I think when we start talking about trade wars, you know, Poilievre has made his priorities clear, right? He's a friend of he who can't be named. I'm going to take Nathan's line on that. You know, I think that what's really important is that when we talk about trade, we need to have trade within Canada as well. We need to make sure that we are looking after each other, countries, you know, East Coast to West Coast, and we need to diversify. So when it comes to he who can't be named and the tariffs, I think that, it's really important that we reject trade deals that are going to sell out our jobs.
Okay, and Leslin.
I think an important part of standing up to President Trump's tariffs is by strengthening our economy, which has been weakened by the Liberal policies over the last 10 years. Canada will never be the 51st state. We all agree on that. And a Conservative government will immediately look to implement mechanisms that will strengthen our workforce. We will launch the Keep Canada Working Fund, which will provide loans to keep people employed. We will also accelerate the negotiations with CUSMA and the free trade deal so that we can deal with trade and security issues immediately. And we will also defend our sovereignty by protecting our borders, by optimizing our natural resource sector, and by protecting our world-class farmers.
Okay, and Colin.
So to build a stronger Canadian economy, we need to strengthen our supply chains and invest in the infrastructure that gets our products, minerals, and natural resources where they need to go quickly and reliably. That means better roads, rail, and transportation corridors, not just for big cities, but for rural regions like ours. Because for a farmer in Haldimand, Norfolk, it's about more than logistics. It's about getting fresh local produce from our fields to tables across the country. That supports our economy, keeps food costs down, and ensures Canadian families are fed by Canadian farmers. A Mark Carney-led Liberal government is committed to building one strong Canadian economy, not 13 fragmented ones. We'll cut interprovincial red tape, improve rural infrastructure, and move our goods, whether it's apples, beef, or steel, faster and more efficiently. Mark Carney has a plan that will work, and working together as a community, I'll make sure Haldimand Norfolk's voice is heard every step of the way.
Okay, and Lily.
Canada cannot win a trade war with the U.S. and should not try. We should not impose retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods. Doing so will raise prices on U.S. goods, increasing the financial strain on Canadian families. Due to the relative size of our economy, we need U.S. goods more than they need ours. The original threat of U.S. tariffs were due to border security. Canada must immediately secure our land borders as well as our ports. This would require much higher levels of inspection of shipping containers to eliminate the entry of drugs, weapons, and illegal migrants into Canada and thereby into the U.S. This would make Canada safer and would give us a stronger economic position to negotiate the removal of tariffs and barriers to the Canada-U.S. trade. Canada must also encourage manufacturing in Canada and eliminate the interprovincial trade barriers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any rebuttals? If you do have a rebuttal, if you just want to put your hand up. Okay, Colin?
I do believe that the carbon tax was addressed by Mark Carney within the first week, and it's been canceled. So I don't know why you keep referring to it, Ms. Lewis. I'm
Okay,
sorry,
no
my opponent.
clapping. Leslin?
The carbon tax has not been canceled. It has been temporarily reduced to zero, and it can only be canceled by an act of Parliament. And so please do not fall for the trap. It will be increased after the election by the same Mark Carney.
Okay, hold on. Everybody just please stop clapping. Like, we've got a bunch of questions that we need to get through, and it's really distracting. We've got an audience at home that's listening, and it's disrespectful, so stop clapping. Question number 3. The housing market is unattainable for first-time home buyers. Many families in Norfolk are paying $30,000 a year in rent, but they can't get a mortgage. What can you do to change that scenario and or create more affordable rentals? And we'll start with Nathan.
Lucky me. We need to concentrate on housing. Using our own resources right now would be the best way to do that. The Greens have a plan for that. Stockpiling our federal resources on softwood lumber for a starter. This would make it cheaper to build homes. Now, where I live, a new building just popped up. This is a 20-story building, and it was built with municipal, provincial money as well. So there is accommodations, I believe it's 40 units of $1,400 a month, which still sounds pretty high for a one-bedroom. but compared to the market out there right now, it's not too bad. So this building was literally built in a year. It was fast-tracked in, it looks beautiful, it's the right way to do things. Kitchener's on to something there, that's all I got to say, and I could talk about it for an hour afterwards if you want.
Okay, Shannon?
So housing, affordable housing, let's put the word affordable housing in there, because that's what's most important for everybody. I know as a mom of 4 children and all of them adults, the ability for them to be able to purchase a home is completely out of their reach. You know, I think that what we need to do is develop a strategy to ensure that housing is made available, but doing it in a way that is respectful of the areas that we will be building in. You know, Pierre Poilievre sold
Responsible matter, and I will stand up for residents who are concerned that mass development will affect our food security, will displace farmers. In addition, as the critic for infrastructure, I can honestly say that we do not have the infrastructure, the roads, the water infrastructure in order to develop mass homes that we need in order to solve the housing problem. That infrastructural problem has to be addressed first. And right now, we are just not in the position in this county to do that without building the infrastructure.
Colin?
So we're facing a housing crisis and we need bold action. That's why we're building 500,000 homes per year through Build Canada Homes, getting the federal government back into the business of home building. We're cutting GST for first-time home buyers and supporting prefab housing to lower costs and build faster. And I think this is something that has to happen within our community as well, because the prices have gotten to a point where we moved in here 10 years ago and it's 3 times as expensive to buy a home here. Now when my wife and I first started out, we had a very small home, about 500 square feet. It had 2 bedrooms, living room and a kitchen. And it was fantastic. It was one of these houses that we really enjoyed, except for when you touched the walls and you could feel the wind coming through them. Just need to fix the insulation. But we need to put ourselves in that position where we've got homes within our community that are affordable.
Okay, and Lily?
Owning a home is a high priority for most Canadians. To many, this goal is impossible. Often both parents need to work to afford a home. This causes increased stress and transportation costs, reduced quality family time, and increased outside influence on child development. Broken homes add to the demand for housing, as one family now maintains 2 homes. Homelessness is not the same as houselessness. In many places, there are unused homes. Even in the rural areas, but in the cities, there are foreign-owned empty buildings that no one is living in. Real estate speculation, foreign investment in Canadian properties, immigration, red tape delays, short-sighted zoning restrictions, and taxes have caused housing prices to rise. CHP would reduce foreign ownership of Canadian properties and would introduce a new fair tax system to lower housing and living costs.
Okay, and Henry?
There's a supply and a demand side to this equation, and the People's Party of Canada government would address the demand side of the equation. It's completely within the purview of the federal government to impose a moratorium on new permanent residents until such time as the housing market cools down. And that's, once that would happen, then we would bring back immigration to levels that were previously normal, like 100,000, 150,000, not 1 million. We would also modify the Bank of Canada's inflation target from 2% to 0%, and work with provinces to curb speculation and money laundering to foreign non-resident buyers in Canada's housing and land markets.
Okay, thank you. The next question. With the cost of living rapidly rising, seniors are being hit hard, especially around their investments, and worry about the age of retirement, housing, healthcare, etc. What are your plans to support seniors through this time of economic uncertainty? And we'll start with Shannon.
Well, I think just watching what's happened over the last 3 weeks, we can see what's going on with the markets and people having the retirement vanishing before their eyes, or their security that they've had in the bank to be able to give them the ability to be retired with dignity. It's just going, it's vanishing with this war that we have going on with he who can't be named down south. And the fact that seniors should be, nobody should ever have to worry about how they're gonna live in their retirement, ever. These are the people that built this country. These are the people that raised us. It is our job to ensure that they get the ability to live in dignity. To be able to do that, we have to stand together. We have to fix healthcare. We have to stop price gouging. We have to ensure that we look after the people who took care of us growing up, and that's what we need to do for our seniors.
Okay, and Leslyn.
We must support and respect our seniors because they are the ones that built this country. And after 10 years of this Liberal government, many seniors can no longer afford things such as the rising cost of food, shelter, and hydro. We need to lower the taxes on seniors. And the Honorable Pierre Poilievre has chosen to allow seniors to earn an extra $10,000 more tax-free to supplement their fixed income. We will also allow, we will also permit the seniors to we will make sure that the retirement age is kept at 65, and we will also allow seniors to have their RSP savings in their account until 73, which is 2 years higher than currently.
Okay, and Colin.
Well, there is an issue in terms of cost and affordability, and we need to do something because in our riding, out of 109,000, we've got approximately 96,000 that are eligible voters. We are a senior population. We are families as well, but we need to support every member of our community. We need to step in and make it more affordable in terms of if we've got to increase CPP to make it affordable. That needs to happen. And I mean, I might not be popular for saying it, or I might get in trouble for saying it, but I'm going to stand up and fight for our community because that's what we need. We need the funds in place for people to be able to afford to live. If you're running into issues because you can't afford groceries, then government needs to step in and help out. If you're in a position where you can't afford to stay in your home, government needs to step in. And I'm willing to fight for this community and ensure that that happens.
Okay, and Lily.
A major part of the solution is reducing the cost of living and the tax burden through our fair tax policy. CHP will assist families in which one parent remains home, but this also would benefit the society because the elderly and disabled are able to remain in their homes with the care of family, thus reducing the social cost of institutionalized care. In addition to reducing taxpayer-funded care, dependents experience the lifelong benefit from loving relational care. CHP wants to give families greater choice when it comes to care for their dependents, including the elderly. CHP would also implement a personal income security account for working Canadians who will eventually retire. PISA would be a self-managed personal saving account fund for workplace deductions. It would be available when needed for unemployment and disability, but its primary purpose would be provide retirement income. In Chile, where this has been implemented, workers retire with substantial savings. Thank you.
Okay, and Henry.
Affordability affects everybody. The CPP plans to cut waste in government. In fact, there is, Maxime Bernier had a phrase or a title for a department of government that would focus on reducing waste, and unfortunately I don't have it right with here. Cutting waste, stop spending money abroad, and balancing the budget would allow the government to reduce taxes and make life more affordable for everybody.
Okay, Nathan.
I wasn't quite prepared for this one, but I will say a couple things. We need some tax reform on our seniors. I respect our seniors. There's a story that's been going around. A gentleman named John in long-term care is separated with his wife now for about 4 or 5 years. All he wants to do is be in the same home as his wife and provincial government won't allow that. I find that disgusting myself, and right before the bill was going to be passed to enable them to be together again, Doug Ford called a snap election, and the bill has to go back in front of the House again. I also lost my last living grandparent last year, and I'm not joking here. All he wanted was raw broccoli. The home he was in would not give him raw broccoli. It was always mush. So every time I saw him, I made sure to bring him some raw broccoli. Broccoli for everyone.
Okay, now on to the next question. This one came in from the Simcoe Reformer. Oh, I should be asking too, sorry. Please, if you do have a rebuttal, if you just raise your hand. I forgot to ask on the last few questions, but yeah, please let me know. This question came in from the Simcoe Reformer. So long before the word tariffs was mentioned, prices were out of control, particularly for food, and have continued to grow with major grocery store chains reporting big profits. Can we cap prices on things? Is that even possible? What is your solution for this? And we're going to start with Leslyn.
Well, the affordability crisis has been exacerbated by the carbon tax, and we brought motions to give relief to farmers, and 48 times the Liberals and the NDP voted against relief to farmers. Those costs are being trickled down to consumers, and the costs of that farmers have to incur to dry their crops and to transport their crops to the market are being passed on to individuals. And so one of the most important things that we can do is to permanently eliminate the carbon tax, not only the consumer carbon tax, but the carbon tax on industries also.
Okay, and to Colin.
So one of the first things a Mark Carney-led Liberal government did was cancel the consumer carbon tax. That's real relief, 18 cents off every liter of gas. We also delivered middle-class tax cuts that put up to $825 back into the pockets of a typical two-income family. These aren't slogans. These are tangible savings when families are stretched thin. My opponent talks a lot about affordability, but hasn't offered a single bill or policy that delivers actual savings for you. In fact, she supported tax positions that benefit the wealthiest. We're helping working families afford gas, groceries, and everyday essentials. But that's what leadership in a crisis looks like, and that's what Mark Carney looks like.
Okay, over to Lily. Okay, please, again, if everybody can just stop the mumbling, it's really distracting. It's distracting for me, and I'm sure it's distracting for the candidates. Okay, over to Lily.
So I think it has a lot to do with taxes that we pay also. Canada's current system of income tax is wrong. Under today's system, the harder you work, the harder they hit you. This is disincentive to work hard and to invest in business. We believe it's wrong to take money away from those who have earned it. The CHP would replace the income tax system with a fair tax, a national sales tax based not on what you earn, but on what you spend. This gives you the power to decide how much tax you pay. If you buy lots of luxury items, you will pay more tax. If you control your spending and keep your expenses low, you will benefit greatly from the fair tax and will be able to keep much more of your paycheck to save, invest, or spend on things you need. Have a look at your paycheck and think of what you could do with the money now being skimmed by Revenue Canada.
Okay, and to Henry.
The short answer to whether or not you can cap prices is no, you can't. I think wage and price controls have been tried before. They don't work. What can be done is to eliminate waste, reduce regulations, reduce taxes, including corporate taxes, and those savings can be passed on.
Okay, and to Nathan.
I've been hearing so much about carbon tax. What was the actual question again?
Okie doke. Long before the word tariffs was mentioned, prices were out of control, particularly for food, and have continued to grow with major grocery stores reporting big profits.
Well, you can stop. That's fine.
Okay.
That's where it all stems from, is the corporate greed that's obviously going on. About 20 years ago, I worked for a major grocer at one of their main hubs, and I quit after having to destroy 3 skids of potato chips because they were going to hit a best before date. I've also seen what happens when first pick happens on farms. How much is left for a second pick? What do seconds look like? They're usually destroyed. This is the kind of disturbing stuff that has to stop. That food could be used in your community today if it wasn't destroyed by big corporate giants. Thank you.
Shannon first. Or next. Go ahead.
Okay. So exactly as Nathan says, I mean, when we're starting to talk about affordability and tariffs, this out of control pricing for groceries isn't something that's new. I know that when in 2009, 2010, I work in a steel mill and we were locked out by our employer. And I know just how hard it was to be able to try and put food on the table for my 4 kids. So one of the things that we need to make sure that we do is we need to put that money back in people's pockets. And the NDP want to do that by cutting the GST on the essentials, the things that young families need, things like diapers, cutting the GST on your utilities, the essentials that you need to be able to live every day. It's important that we remember that basically what we're trying to do here is to ensure that everybody still is able to live a decent life. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so rebuttal, Leslyn?
Yes, I just want to clarify that Mr. Walsh continues to say that the carbon tax has been canceled. It has not been canceled. It has been paused. He had made mention to the 18 cents reduction in gas. That goes to show you how much the Liberal government has been gouging from you over the years. And after the election, the carbon tax will be raised again.
Okay, any other rebuttals? Okay, go ahead.
I'd just like to add too that on top of the corporate greed, you got to ask yourself why it is that one of the biggest grocery chains out there that boasts that they have the best supply chain management in the country, if not North America, also has the highest prices out in the market. Why is that? I'm pretty sure most of y'all here know why.
Go ahead, Lily.
I would just like to speak on behalf of our local big chain grocery stores. I deliver weekly food with Hope Harbor Ministries, and it is donated free of charge. It's 50% off items or things that have expired. But our local grocery stores are forwarding those past date foods onto the people in need.
Good, that's good to know. Thank you. Okay, the next question. How would you rate the federal government in the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how will you ensure individual rights are not eroded as we have seen elsewhere? And we're going to start with Colin on that question.
So as someone who has taught students from all backgrounds across Norfolk, from kindergarten to grade 8, I know that every person, every family, every voice in our community matters. That's why I'm running to represent everyone in Haltom and Norfolk. Our riding is diverse, not just in where we live, but in who we are. Rural and urban, young and old, Indigenous and newcomer, LGBTQ2S+ and allies. Everyone deserves to feel seen, heard, supported, and safe. I believe in building a community rooted in inclusivity, equality, and equity, where opportunity is real for every person, not just for those who've always had it. That means fair access to healthcare, education, housing, and jobs, regardless of your background, income, or beliefs. Leadership isn't about picking sides, it's about showing up for all. That's the kind of MP I'll be, one who listens, respects, and works hard for everyone in our riding.
Okay, and Lily.
Diversity, equity, inclusiveness is grounded in the idea that all worldviews, lifestyles, and behaviors are equally moral and valid. No culture is wrong. But if this were true, then honor killings are honorable, and cannibalism is just another way to eat. Thus, all worldviews, lifestyles, and behaviors are not equally moral and valid. Some cultures are wrong. The question then becomes, what will be the moral standard? Some say the moral standard should be determined by the majority, others say the minority. The problem is that either will fluctuate over time. What is moral today will be immoral tomorrow, and vice versa. Human morals are constantly changing. We assert that the moral standard must be unchanging and founded in the supremacy of God as laid out in the Bible. This is consistent with Canada's Christian heritage and the preamble to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, whereas Canada is founded upon principles that
Okay.
recognize the supremacy of God
Thank-
and law.
Thank you, sorry. On to Henry now.
DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, sounds nice, but it's a kind of anti-racism or reverse racism. It's blatantly racist while claiming at the same time that it's anti-racist. Moreover, it includes in its ideology that of the gender ideology, which is also a lie. Discrimination against Canadians on the basis of sex, race, or religion is illegal under Section 15(1) of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I don't know what DEI is supposed to be doing, but it's already illegal, and this reverse racism, well, it has to be stopped.
Okay, and Nathan.
I'm pretty sure most people know the Green Party is welcoming to all Canadians, no matter where they're from, what religion they practice, what sex they want to be. We're all Canadians. That's all I'm going to say on it, because I'm just kind of a little baffled here about some of the stuff I'm hearing up on the stage. Thanks.
Okay, and Shannon.
I mean, everybody knows that the NDP is an inclusive party. There is no doubt, and I don't think anyone in this table up here on this stage or anyone in this room would disagree with anyone's right to live their lives the way that they choose.
Here, here.
So whether we call it DEI or whether we call it just being human, everyone has the right and should have the right without somebody sticking their nose into what I do with my life or what anybody in this room does with their lives. We're an inclusive society. That's what makes us so special and makes us so Canadian. And I don't think anybody in this room would think that we don't have the right to live our lives how we see fit.
Okay, and Leslyn.
Every human being deserves to be treated with equal dignity and respect. However, the obsession with identities, it's destroying our nation. We have seen a movement to cancel Canada Days. We have seen the names of streets being changed. For example, Dundas, who was an abolitionist who fought to abolish slavery, his name was removed because he didn't do it in a way that people thought that he should do it. And so we have targeted even innocent people. And I think that this obsession with DEI has been counterproductive. It has moved away from equity, and we need to move back to respecting and giving people equal dignity and respect.
Okay, and is there any rebuttals, Colin?
So I had an interesting conversation when out holding a meet and greet in Port Ryerson, and I was speaking with a lovely couple, and they remember when bill was passed that everyone was basically showing respect and inclusion for everyone. And they said, you know, I'm going to reach out to our MP and I'm going to give this MP a call and I'm going to thank her. And she said, had I read it all, I would have voted against it. And right there, he thought, where are we in terms of including each other? This is hate speech and homophobia.
Okay. Alrighty, good. Thank you. Okay, now Emma is going to take over. She's a lawyer, so she's a lot tougher than I am. But I just want to give a shout out to the bell ringers, and every time I hear the phone ring, I want to reach over and say 9 more minutes of sleep. So Emma, over to you.
Apparently I've been cast as the scary one. And she would be right. All right. Defense has become a greater issue to Canadians, considering our new relationship with the American administration. What plans do you have internationally to work with allies, and how do we protect our borders? We're going to start with Lily.
So Canada's national defence must be given high priority. A nation must be able to defend its borders. Our armed forces deserve the best and latest technology, training, and support. Veterans deserve to be respected and properly looked after. They deserved our country and put their lives on the line. We need to recognize their service to our country.
Sorry, the pen was stolen from me. Henry?
PPC would focus on its closest ally, that would be the United States, work in unison with them for defense as well as trade. That being said, the PPC is completely against involving itself in foreign wars that have no strategic interest for Canada. A great example is Ukraine. It's a complete waste of money. It hasn't helped anybody. That Canada has sent Ukraine $20 billion in money and weaponry. It's prolonged suffering there. It's a war that was started by neocons in the States against Russia. It's got nothing to do with us.
Nathan?
The Greens just announced, I believe it was 2 days ago, that we'd be scrapping the F-35 fighter plane deal. If we're in the House, we're going to sign against that. We need the source from within Canada through companies like Bombardier for drone defense along our borders. They're also looking at a civil defense plan, which would mean everyday citizens would get trained in certain duties to protect our country from threats of war or even threats of climate change with fires and floods. There's also the gun buyback program right now, which I think is a little bit ridiculous, taking away legal firearms from firearm owners that are not criminals. It's pretty much a no-brainer to me at this point, guys. You know, we'll be fine. We don't need to worry about the orange man downstairs.
Shannon?
I'm not going to profess to say that I know a lot of information about the defense strategy of Canada. I'm a steelworker. That's kind of what I do. But I do think that as the NDP, what we need to do is ensure that whoever ends up in Ottawa, there is somebody in that parliament that's going to keep those in charge accountable. And that's what the NDP wants to do when we're going to go head to head against potentially the Conservatives or the Liberals. You need to have a watchdog in there. We need to make sure that when we're doing things with respect to people, but also to ensure that we're looking after ourselves as Canadians. So that's what the NDP wants to do, is make sure that we're in there to make sure that we're holding people accountable and we're making the right decision for Canadians.
Leslyn?
We need to work with the Five Eyes to make sure that we eliminate any security threat. We absolutely need to embolden our military. Right now, Canada has no icebreakers. We need to protect our northern borders. We have Russia and China mining on the northern shores of our borders, and we need to ensure that we contribute our 2% to NATO to make sure that we're strong. We need to be able to get our natural resources to Tidewater so that we can start to enrich our country and start to reinvest in our military, provide proper equipment for our military. There are some cases that we've heard of where people in the Army are not even having proper equipment and are using equipment from other countries. That is completely unacceptable.
Colin?
Well, for one, we need to ensure that we strengthen our allies globally. In terms of staying in United Nations, for one. We can't leave the United Nations. We need allies. My brother fought for our country for the better part of his life. He just recently passed in January, and this would have been his 50th birthday today. And he told me that when he was in the Ukraine and training soldiers, he felt like he was training them to go off and die. and it hurt him, but he did it, and he kept fighting for our country because he said they need somebody to look out for them. And if we're not willing to stand up for someone else, how are we expecting someone else to be able to stand up for us in a situation? We need to keep those allies around our world community and build those corridors in terms of strengthening our trade partners for military, whether it be for jets, whether it be for radar that I know was purchased as well from Australia to help strengthen our defense.
Any follow-ups?
I have one for Colin. When did Ukraine become our ally?
Well, if my brother's willing to fight for someone, I'm willing to fight for someone. He laid his life on the line every day for, 20 some odd years, and I don't even know how many times he was under fire.
I don't think we have a treaty with Ukraine.
They're under attack from someone, and we're sticking up for them.
We're sticking up for them? We're just going to stick up for random countries?
We are going to help those that are in a position where they don't have somebody there to help them.
Okay.
That war was provoked by
Gentlemen,
neocons.
this is a very, very passionate subject, but we do want to move on. The next question is this. Do you believe that there is a balance between protecting our environment and progress? What does that look like to you? We're going to start with Henry.
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question?
Do you believe that there is a balance between protecting our environment and progress? What does that look like to you?
It's heavily on the progress side. The environmentalists have convinced government to bring in all kinds of regulations in the pipeline industry, in mineral extraction, to hinder our development. It goes all the way to, the UN has the emissions controls, and all these things to hinder our development right now, I think is a bad idea. I think we should go forward with progress. So.
Nathan?
One of the first principles of the Green Party is sustainability, which includes our environment. We need our environment to be clean. We need our waterways to be clean. We need our soil to be clean, to be able to grow food and have our livestock fed. Ignoring climate change, I'm not a big fan of. Yes, it has been around since the planet started, whenever that was. But with the global population, it has definitely gotten worse, and we're seeing results of it now. Mother Earth is all we got. We're humans and we're on her, so it's up to her to decide our fate, in my opinion. Yeah.
Shannon?
First, I just want to say, Colin, I'm really sorry about the loss of your brother.
Thank you.
I'm really sorry. I think it's important when we look at how we have to protect the environment. It's not lost on any of us that there's wildfires happening, there's floods, there's rain. This is not something that's been made up. This is happening. We're watching it happen in real time. I remember the days back in when I was a kid in the 70s, to being able to toboggan down a hill, and the snow stayed for the entire winter. You could build a snow fort and you had to play with it for 3, 4, 5 weeks. It was there the whole time. We don't have that now. But we also need to be able to do it in a responsible way that ensures that we aren't putting things out of balance. That if we're going to put environmental protections in place, we're also not doing it at the expense of good paying jobs.
Leslyn?
After 9 years of this Liberal government, we have seen that they don't have an environmental plan, they only have a tax plan. They have used the environment as a means to generate revenues through taxes. We currently rank 62 out of 65 on climate action around the world, despite high carbon taxes. The Conservative government will focus on technology and not taxes, and help to address real serious environmental challenges. We will get rid of the carbon tax, and we will focus on making sure that we protect the environment, but it's not done on the backs of farmers and hardworking Canadians. We will ensure that we implement environmentally sustainable policies that will not hurt our economy.
Colin?
As a rural riding, Haldimand Norfolk is on the front lines of climate change. From shoreline erosion to unpredictable crop seasons, our farmers and families are feeling it. We need to invest in green building materials, climate-resilient infrastructure, and agricultural supports. My opponent has voted against every meaningful climate measure and offers no vision for how to protect our farmland and our future. I believe if we invest in green technology, use renewable resources, we can ensure that we are protecting our environment for our children, because we're just caretakers for the next generation. And I want to make sure that my kids still have a climate that's temperate and that's not dry, and issues in terms of heat, too much heat.
Lily?
CO2 is not pollution. Canadians need to recognize that carbon dioxide is beneficial to crops and forestry. CO2 enhances photosynthesis, increases leaf area, plant branch and fruit numbers, water use efficiency, biological nitrogen fixation, and the ability to adapt to environmental stresses such as poor soil, weeds, insects, disease, and drought. The financial benefit of increased CO2 is enormous. Of 45 crops examined, every crop had an increase of more than $1 billion. Wheat was the crop with the second greatest financial increase at $274 billion. Vineyards was third at $270 billion increase. Explain to me why the government is trying to reduce carbon dioxide. Reduction in carbon dioxide is reduction in food production.
Listen. I don't want to try out my gentle parenting skills on you all today, but I will. Any rebuttal? No rebuttal? Okay. What type of unique investment would you like to attract to the riding to support economic development and industries that may be hardest hit? Starting with Nathan.
Oh, jeez. I hate going first.
Sorry.
Obviously, our agriculture sector is going to get hit hard with this. So is our automotive sector, and our steel and aluminum workers are going to be affected by this. I'm working on it. We're working on it. It's changing all the time. How do you come up with answers to questions where the game changes every hour, if not every minute, with what's going on? It's almost impossible to give a solid answer, and I'm not going to come here and lie to the people here and just tell you what you might want to hear. It's going to be rough on a lot of sectors, and we need to make sure we're doing our best to protect Canadians at this moment. That's all.
Shannon?
Can you repeat the question, please? Because
Sure.
yeah.
What type of unique investment would you like to attract to the riding to support economic development and industries that may be the hardest hit?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think that we need to have an approach in which everybody's opinions are taken into consideration. We've got some awesome, great businesses that are popping up all over this riding. We've got, a lot of small. I don't want to make it about beer, but we've got a lot of craft breweries. We've got a lot of wineries that are popping up. We have such a diverse riding. It's huge, and I think that when we're talking about attracting unique opportunities, we're already doing that. We just need to hone it in and really focus on how we're going to attract more, quite honestly, because the more we attract, the more diversity we have in business, then the more jobs we're going to have for our people.
Leslyn?
One area that is very, very critical for us expanding is is in making sure that every resident in Haldeman, Norfolk has access to reliable broadband, reliable internet. Even in the farming sector, you will see that there's increasingly more emphasis placed on internet services and automation. We cannot be left behind, and the world is moving so fast, digitally and innovatively, that every single resident of Haldeman, Norfolk should have broadband. And I believe that having accessible internet will seep into all areas of production, including automotive, including agriculture, including housing.
Colin?
Our region has untapped potential, and we need a representative who will fight to unlock it. I'll push for targeted investment in small business, skilled trades, and local infrastructure, from, first time I'm going to agree with you, better broadband to safer roads. Mark Carney's economic leadership means more than jobs and more stability here at home. We need to improve our trade corridors so we can get our local products, and in terms of improving our infrastructure as well, to those ports and ship them out to other trade partners around the world. We've got great products here locally, and the rest of the world and the rest of our country needs to see them.
Lily?
I think we really need to invest in our youth, starting up small businesses, particularly in the tourism sector. We have immensely beautiful land and resources here that could be implemented more than they are. It's very difficult for our youth to start up their own businesses. My youngest is doing so himself. And we just need to really provide them the means to, like right now, like with the county, Haldeman County, Norfolk County, there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of things they're not allowed to do because, you know, risk and all this sort of thing that can be mitigated. And they really need that little extra help to be able to start up the businesses that they want to start in our community, and mostly in the tourism sector. Thank you.
Henry?
Honestly, I don't know. I would reach out to the Chamber of Commerce and ask, their input. Machine tools comes to mind. I know that industry in Japan started, with machine tools first. But that might be old technology, so it's out of my wheelhouse, and I would ask for input.
Does anyone have any follow-up? Okay. Going once, going twice.
Actually, I'd like to rebut. Ms. Lewis, just to make sure everyone here is aware that the broadband solution might have been solved by now if it wasn't for the provincial PC government scrapping the deal with Starlink. Say what you want about Elon Musk, that deal's now off the table, so hopefully someone else can come in and fulfill that need, or maybe Elon can step down.
Any other rebuttal points? Okay. Healthcare, as a rule, is a provincial issue, but there are policies that the federal government can put into place to help Canadians. Are there policies that your party will present to help make Canadians healthier? And maybe touch on strategies for a federal plan to help rural communities find more doctors. We're going to start with Shannon.
Over 6.5, it's estimated, 6.5 million Canadians don't have a family doctor. I think healthcare, as I said earlier, is it's a basic right. It should be a basic right of all Canadians. So when we're talking about ensuring that we have enough family doctors for all Canadians, nobody should be standing in line at 2 o'clock in the morning, lining up in the snow because there's a new family doctor that comes into town. We have individuals and people that have moved to this country that have a great skill set, and we're just not tapping into some of that skill set. I know there's conversations about immigration and things like that, but I think when I work at Stelco, and I've seen people that we have cleaning our floors who are doctors from other countries, and we're not utilizing some of those individuals. So I think that it would be important to be able to utilize those skills.
Just if folks could maybe just double check that their phones are off, because next time a phone goes off, I'm going to start dancing, and my dance skills are terrible. So please turn them off. Leslyn?
Yes, our healthcare system is suffering, and after decades of this Liberal government, Canada spends more on interest payments for its debt than it does on transfer payments to provinces for healthcare. We have a massive shortage in healthcare professionals. Last year, in Caledonia, nearly 2,000 residents were without a family doctor when Dr. Robinson was retiring. And she tried for years to get somebody in Canada to replace her, and she was unsuccessful. And so it took over a year to bring a doctor from the United Kingdom in order to take over her practice, and I was instrumental in facilitating that. I even had to go over to the Minister of Health during question period and hand a letter. We have the Blue Seal program that will allow doctors to come from different provinces and will retain and attract healthcare professionals.
Colin?
For the first time in our country's history, dental care is being expanded to working adults aged 18 to 64, saving families up to $800 a year. That matters in rural Ontario, where too many people skip dental visits because they can't afford them. And it's just the beginning of what we need to do to improve access to rural health care, especially mental health and family doctors. My opponent has focused on opposing public health measures and mandates, but has no plan to improve health access. I'll fight for practical investments that improve care, not just ideological talking points. We need doctors in our community, and we need to bring them here and just attract them here, get them here. Once they get here, they'll love it. That's how it happened to us. I started teaching here 13 years ago, and after 3 years, I told my wife, let's move out here. This is where I want to raise my family.
Lily?
I need an MRI on my shoulder. It's booked for January. Many Canadians do not even have a family doctor. Waiting lists for surgeries and MRIs are much too long. Canada needs to rehire and compensate doctors and nurses who were fired for refusing the experimental vaccines during COVID. Canada needs to speed up the process of certifying foreign-born doctors while maintaining high-quality standards. More emphasis should be placed on preventative care and alternative medicine. The CHP would shorten waiting lists by defunding abortion, assisted suicide or MAID, and gender reassignment surgeries. Those dollars would be better directed to real health care such as hips and hearts. The CHP would improve delivery of services by allowing more private delivery options, and the CHP would insist that new hospitals incorporate features to limit the spread of hospital-borne infections.
Henry?
Canada has the highest cost in the developed world in healthcare, and we have the lowest results. It's the only system in the OECD that doesn't have a private element in the system, strictly public. So logically, I think opening up the medical system, healthcare, to the public sector is a good idea. Now, specifically addressing the doctor shortage, the moratorium on new residents that People's Party of Canada is presenting, that'll take stress off the hospital system, but there's also, the plan is to reduce drastically the number of foreign students as well. That would free up spaces in medical school for Canadian students who, of course, are going to stay in Canada more than likely. So, thank you.
Nathan?
The Green Party would like to enforce and enhance the Canada Health Act to ensure that all new federal dollars go to the public and not to not-for-profit. Investing in healthcare for worker training and fair compensation, including streamlined credentials, recognition for internationally trained professionals. Now, being on a disability claim myself right now, I've already had my MRI. It wasn't good in my neck. I've got bone spurs and fragments pinching off nerves. I have to go for injections on my hip. I'm probably going to have spurs removed off my feet. The wait times are horrible. 6 months for MRIs, 3 months for ultrasounds. I waited 9 months for surgery during the pandemic. The shortage issue has to be addressed. We don't have the staff, and the private sector might take from our public sector and cause more chaos in our public health care without staffing.
Follow-ups? Shannon?
Well, first I want to thank Colin for pointing out that the Liberals decided to jump on the NDP plan about dental care for all Canadians. So thank you very much for pointing that out. I'm glad you guys finally got on board. I mean, everybody knows the basis of the NDP has been universal pharmacare and universal health care. To privatize health care is, in my opinion, making it so that the people who need it the most won't be able to afford it. It's not something that we need to do. And also, opening up so that we can have foreign-born doctors come in, I think that's a great idea. So thanks, Lily.
Any other follow-ups? Okay. Our next community question comes from MyFM. Norfolk County Council is not immune to the drug epidemic, and council has struggled with drug use in arena bathrooms and illegal activity outside of their administrative building. What do you believe is the best solution to help with the current drug epidemic, and how would your party support municipalities? Leslyn.
Well, there is a opioid crisis in Canada, and more than 50,000 people have lost their lives to fentanyl since 2015. That's more than we lost in World War II. The Liberals have pursued a radical experiment of taxpayer-funded hard drug policies, which have diverted drugs to be resold. Some of these drugs are resold to children and other vulnerable Canadians. A Conservative government would cut off the funding of hard drugs and opioids. We would fund treatment of 50,000 Canadians in treatment centers, and we would support those who are addicted to drugs with treatment and housing and reuniting them with their family rather than giving them hard drugs. And we will crack down on the Liberals' recklessness and free drug experiment.
Colin?
So I guess the real question here is, how do we get them back in a position where they're contributing to our community rather than being in the positions they are? And I think rehabilitation is key. I don't think we need to persecute our most vulnerable in those positions. We need to help get them back on their feet so that they can start contributing again. And that's not an easy process, and I don't have a perfect solution, but I do know that the first step is to get them off the streets and in a position where we can actually start making progress towards becoming a contributing member again to society.
Lily?
So marijuana is a gateway drug. It impairs judgment, can be addictive, heightens sensory stimulus, increases physical appetite, reduces concentration, increases traffic accidents and fatalities, leads to miscommunication, and often to mental illness. It should be returned to the category of an illegal drug. Laws must be enforced or they become irrelevant. The increased use of marijuana prior to its legalization was partly a result of poor law enforcement and a revolving door justice policy. So-called safe injection sites for hardcore street drugs have increased usage and reduced respect for the law. Opioid abuse and the deaths of many from fentanyl and other street drugs demonstrate a failure of our society to inspire young people with a sense of purpose. Government funds would be better used in preventing addiction and enforcing the law. Governments should not participate in enabling self-destructive behaviors.
Henry?
The current harm reduction policies, safe injection sites, distribution of clean needles and all that, seems like a good idea. It's pitched as, We're saving people from, passing bloodborne diseases and stuff like that. But it doesn't seem to be working to actually reduce harm. It seems to be growing, getting worse. It seems to be associated with homelessness and all of that. So I have to agree that law enforcement, I think, is the way that should be solved. Unfortunately, incarceration might lead to cold turkey,
Nathan?
It's a topic I was hoping that it wouldn't come up, as it's directly affecting my family right now. Not only do I have a cousin that's had her 3 children taken away from her, 2 at birth, because of her addictions. My own little brother now, he's on the streets. He's given up on my niece and nephew. There needs to be something done. I want to say we need to bring back some kind of institutions, more of a rehab and mental health facility treatment programs to help people out that are in the throes of addiction, because it affects not just the person that's addicted, it affects everybody, their friends, their families. Too many people are dying, and we need to maybe take a little bit of a heavy-handed approach, but we can't just lock everybody up. We don't have prison space for that. Locking them up is not going to solve anything. Thank you.
Shannon?
Nobody wakes up one day and says, I want to become an addict. There isn't a human being that would do that. What we've created by having Big Pharma being in the pockets of Big Pharma, the opioid crisis was created by corporations, by corporate greed. Anybody knows used to be that you could go to your doctor and they would write you scripts for things that you didn't necessarily need. You see doctors that are writing scripts for medications, and then what ends up happening is people end up relying on that medication. What I think needs to happen is that we need to understand that addictions is not just a choice, it's a mental health crisis. And unless we start to address the mental health crisis that it is, we're going to continue to see people get addicted, we're going to continue to see death, we're going to continue to see houselessness and homelessness and people struggling. So addictions is mental health, and mental health is health.
Any follow-up?
I'd also like to follow up about the marijuana being a gateway drug. I do not believe that to be true myself. As I've experienced it myself, I've smoked it, and I've never done any illicit drugs ever. It's never taken me down that road. It's never taken any of my friends down that road. I'm just gonna stop there. Oh, might I add that no drug addict wakes up in the morning and says, "Today's the day I stop taking drugs."
Any other follow-up? All right, we're going to move on to the next question. What is the right balance for immigration in Canada? Starting with Colin.
Well, we have to have an infrastructure in place before we can bring more and more people in and not have homes for them. We are in a unique situation in Haldeman Norfolk because a lot of farmers rely on immigration and workers to help with their fields and to help with their cultivating of their farms. So how do we find that balance? I think the infrastructure needs to be in place first. I think we need to slow things down. But at the same time, we need to take into consideration there's going to be exceptions in every case, and in our case, it's an exception.
Lily?
Canada's first responsibility is to the safety of our citizens. Immigration to Canada is a privilege, not a right. Excessive numbers of immigrants, foreign workers, refugees, and foreign students have created a housing crisis and a shortage of doctors. Immigration must be dramatically reduced until housing affordability and adequate medical personnel are achieved. Our borders must be secure. No person should enter Canada without permission. Refugees and immigrants must be properly vetted and must express loyalty to Canada. They must obey Canadian laws.
Henry?
The PPC would put a moratorium on new permanent residents until the housing crisis cools down, the economic impact of mass immigration has been neutralized, and the social and cultural disintegration has been reversed, and then accept a reasonable number yearly. Deport illegals, lower drastically the number of temporary foreign workers limited to such like agricultural and seasonal, and accept fewer refugees and focus on those persecuted with no friendly neighboring countries. Make birth tourism illegal, where people come and they have a child here and that child becomes automatically Canadian. That should be not automatic. What do I say? And take Canada out of the UN Global Compact for migration. Thank you.
Nathan?
Aside from our Indigenous peoples, Canada was forged on immigration, and it will continue to go that way. Now, it was rolled out wrong recently. I've seen it in Kitchener-Waterloo. Many foreign students came in. There was people not being able to get to their jobs because all the transit buses were full for hours. Not minutes, not one bus, 5 buses. The question that I posed to a local radio show host is, why isn't Conestoga College, that is in the surplus of, I think it was last year about $14 million, using some of that money to provide housing for the students that they're bringing in from foreign countries? There's a way we can make immigration work, and we don't need to kick everybody out. The illegals, yes, but there's a way we can all live together and be fine. Yeah. Peace.
Shannon?
I think in this day and age, immigration's a bit of a touchy topic. I think the only person who's an immigrant on this stage is this woman sitting right here beside me. And some of the rhetoric that I hear, and I have been hearing, it makes me almost embarrassed that we would sit here and turn it into such a divisive issue. We need immigrants in this country. As Nathan says, we're all immigrants at some stage of the game, and unless you can claim that you're Indigenous, then we've all got here somehow. But to turn it into such a divisive issue, we have other things that we could be, other better places we could be putting our energy, instead of blaming the housing crisis all on immigration, or blaming the lack of doctors all on immigration. There is a balance that needs to be found. I agree with Nathan. It wasn't necessarily rolled out properly lately, but we can't be turning that as our only answer to correct everything is immigration.
Leslyn?
As an immigrant myself, I have been aggrieved to see how the Liberals have completely mismanaged our immigration system. For 150 years, people came to Canada for a better life, and they also made a positive contribution to our country. Over the last decade, the Liberals have broken our immigration system. It is disorderly and out of control. The Liberals have permitted rampant abuse and fraud to happen. We need to take back control of our immigration system. We need to restore a common sense approach. We should cap population growth to be below the growth of the available jobs and the available homes and our healthcare infrastructure. We also need to end abuse, and we need to end fraud in our immigration system, our refugee system, and our international students program.
Come on, guys. Y'all had one job. Any follow-up? No follow-up? Okay. In all that's happening in the world, Canada and Norfolk, where do we find hope or a bright light, not to be confused with the one in the back of the room, to get through these challenges? We'll start with Lily.
I think it goes back to what I said while we were speaking earlier, that we need to assert a moral standard that is unchanging and founded in the supremacy of God as laid out in the Bible. This is consistent with Canada's Christian heritage and the preamble to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and of law. If we don't revert to the way that Canada used to be, where law was founded on morals and values that were from God instead of the ever-changing human values that they just flip-flop from day to day on what's right and what's wrong, we need to return to a set standard of values and morals in order for this country to be restored. Thank you.
Henry?
The People's Party of Canada believes in the people of Canada. And the people of Canada can overcome these challenges, but we have to stop piling on the mass immigration. That is a big problem. I mean, we're not talking 100,000 or 200,000, we're talking millions. That's crazy. When I first heard that, I thought, what are you talking about? You know, how comes no one's screaming about this? I mean, we're flooding the country with new immigrants. It's ridiculous. It's not helping anybody. It's not helping them. It's lowering the standards of everybody. If you keep doing this, it's just going to wreck things. So if you stop that, Canadians will pick up the pieces and will make a brighter future.
Nathan?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Get
In
this.
all that's happening in the world, Canada and Norfolk, where do we find hope or a bright light to get through these challenges?
I'm going to say no comment. I feel I might be a little too sarcastic, and I don't want to offend anyone up here. So I'm going to pass that one along to Shannon. Thank you.
Shannon?
Oh, thanks, Nathan.
No problem.
Back to the way it used to be, I don't know what that means. I really don't know what that means. The bright light is the fact that we are different than anybody else. We're Canadians. We have that bright light within us. We could disagree up here on this stage. We can point fingers. We can come up with everything that we want to say why we're better. But we're Canadians. We are better, and we are different. And that's where the light comes from. Being able to embrace everyone for their differences, being able to embrace diversity, being able to embrace people for the value that they bring, no matter who they are, no matter what their station is in life, no matter where they come from. Everyone has value, and that's where we're going to find our light.
I know. I feel like a disappointed school teacher. No offense.
Not taken.
Leslyn?
I believe that to whom much is given, much is required, and we all have been blessed and been given an ability to contribute to this great community of Haldimand, Norfolk. I also feel that what unites us is stronger than what divides us, and we should focus on what has contributed to building this great nation: hard work, perseverance, optimizing our resources, allowing governments to do for us what we can't do for ourselves, but limiting governments so that they can stay out of our lives, that they can create policies that will enrich our lives, such as housing, affordability, healthcare, protecting our seniors, respecting our veterans, and honoring everything that has made us strong as Canadians.
Colin?
I think we unfortunately need to thank Trump. He's unified us like no one else has ever unified us as a country. I mean, when he was elected, it was the first time in our house we felt anxiety about what was happening on the other side. And knowing that we have the right person at the right time in a position with the expertise, understands the marketplace, who's leading our country, gives me hope. I know it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be bumpy, but at least we're not looking just short term. We're thinking long term fixes.
Anybody want to make a follow-up comment?
Shannon does.
I just do.
Shannon.
When I think back to when I first became involved in any type of the labor movement or thought about getting involved in politics was when there's a man came to our picket line in 2010 on March 14th when we were in the 1 year of our lockout by U.S. Steel. And that man was Jack Layton. And I think he said it pretty clearly when he said, love is better than hate and hope is better than fear. And that's what's going to unite us.
Any further comment? All right. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts on our questions. We'd like to now allow each of you 2 minutes for closing statements. We drew for this order as well. Let's start with Colin.
Thank you. This election is about more than party politics. It's about people. It's about the families working hard to make ends meet, the seniors who deserve respect and support after a lifetime of contributions, and the young people who are trying to find their place and build a future right here in Haldimand, Norfolk. I'm running because I believe our community deserves better. Better access to health care, real investment in housing, meaningful support for farmers and small businesses, and leadership that's focused on bringing people together. I've spent more than a decade teaching across this region, working alongside families from Walsh to Simcoe. I've listened, I've learned, and now I'm ready to fight for all of us in Ottawa. This is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. Let's choose a path forward that includes everyone and builds a stronger, more united Haldimand, Norfolk. And if Mark Carney gets in and we get in, we finally have a voice at the table.
Nathan?
Well, as you could tell, I'm not the most professional up here. I don't have a binder full of notes. I'm pretty much just up here to have a conversation with y'all. And that's kind of what I do as I go around Haldimand, Norfolk, knocking on some doors here and there. I have mobility issues, so I'm not going to be able to go to everyone's door, and from what I hear back from the public, they don't like that anyway. I'm running a $0 campaign, which means I don't have any money to put signs up all over the place. I also think these signs are causing problems in our environment, in our landfills, and in our neighborhoods, sowing division between us. It's time Canadians got back together, and like somebody mentioned, the man's name who shall not be mentioned, has made Canada stronger. I think we can use that momentum going forward. We need to stop playing partisan politics. And as a filmmaker in the independent film business for 12 years, the political theater seems to have gotten bigger, especially since social media came along. It's in your face all the time, 24/7. Anyone remember when politics was boring? You didn't talk about it at the dinner table. You maybe talked it with a few friends or family around the fire, or if you're really mad at your uncle, you'd start the conversation. But hey, let's bring Canada together for everybody. Solidarity. Let's keep it going. That's it.
Henry?
Canada is facing some very difficult problems. The housing crisis and inflation are making the cost of living skyrocket. Government policies are leading to a disintegration of Canadian identity. On the one hand, it promotes gender ideology, and on the other hand, it imports millions of immigrants who would look at you in disbelief, and rightly so, if you suggested to them that a man can give birth. Is there any doubt that the very fabric of our society is being pulled apart? I think most of us are stuck in the middle thinking, what the heck is going on? Would you have ever imagined that things would get this weird and this bad? It's getting harder to celebrate this country as the forces trying to change it into something unrecognizable maintain their power. I want to call them globalists, but you can call them Bilderbergs, the Davos crowd, Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum. Trudeau is just a front man, as is Carney, as is Poilievre. They're all part of the same establishment crowd. They will try anything to stop the people from taking control back. Maxime Bernier, the leader of the PPC, was disallowed from participating in the leaders' televised debate. You know they tried to incarcerate Mr. Trump for years. In Romania, elections were canceled because Georgescu, the popular opposition leader, looked to win. That's an EU country. France just convicted Marie Le Pen, who is also rising. The AfD in Germany will face prosecution next, as they have just surpassed the current government's popularity. Try an experiment with me. Vote Maxime Bernier and the People's Party of Canada and see if the globalists have complete control here too. You can't lose. Either Mr. Bernier is somehow thwarted, and then you know where we stand with respect to your freedoms, or we win and implement all the good policies that will lead to freedom and prosperity again in Canada. Thank you.
Leslyn?
After a dark decade under Liberal leadership, our country is hurting. Millions are turning to food banks. Here at home, we have one of the greatest agricultural regions, yet 1 in 6 Canadians, 1 in 6 Haldeman Norfolk residents are suffering from food insecurity. The dream of home ownership is fading, and now requiring over $200,000 to be able to afford a home. Crime is at a historic high. Opioid death is up 200%. Under the Carney-Trudeau Liberals, taxes have been hiked. Farmers have been punished with red tape and carbon taxes. Resource projects have been blocked and industries have been weakened. Now, with the Trump tariffs hitting our economy, we have been left in a position of weakness and vulnerability. Let's be clear, the Liberals made this mess. And the truth is, we cannot rely on the arsonists to put out the fire. But we have a choice. Pierre Poilievre and our Conservative team will restore hope and put Canada first. We will stand up for Canada, and we will stand up to Trump. We will defend our industries, our borders, our farmers, our workers, and our sovereignty. We will unleash Canada's locked up potential, getting our resources to international markets and making our country competitive once again. We will cut income taxes by 15%. We will axe the carbon tax for everyone and support our seniors. We will restore safe streets by repealing the Liberal soft on crime policies, and we will end taxpayer-funded hard drugs, offering treatment to those who face addiction. We will target real criminals and not law-abiding firearms owners. Canada is at a crossroads, and I have great hope. It's time to put Haldeman Norfolk, our families, and our country first.
Shannon?
I think it's easy to say that it's been a back and forth between the Liberals and the Conservatives for ever. But at some stage of the game, we've never gotten any better. We just sit here and we blame back and forth, shooting pot shots at each other across the bow, these ones are doing. Now, I'm not saying that what we need is, and at this stage of the game, an NDP government that's going to be able to form a majority government. That's not going to happen. What we need from Haldeman Norfolk is we need affordability. You need a representative in this riding that has grown up here. I've lived here my whole life. I've worked here. My family lives here. What you need is someone who can represent you because I am one of you. And up in Ottawa, you also need people that are going to hold the others accountable. And that's what the NDP does. We ensure that every Canadian has the right to live a life with dignity. That's the basis of our platform. That's the basis of our policies, and making sure that you have representation in Haldeman Norfolk that is actually your representation. People need to make sure that we as Canadians remain the people that when we go around the world, people envy us. We're envied as Canadians. But Haldeman Norfolk is such a diverse and such a beautiful riding. It's so huge and massive, and the people that live here deserve to have representation that can take their voice to Ottawa. Not based on whether or not Poilievre or whether or not Carney, whichever side of the fence is going to keep going, because those are the only two that we've ever done. So what you need to make sure is, and I'm not a career politician by any stretch of the imagination, I'm just a steel worker. That's all I am. But I do know you, and I do know what would be best for us here in Haldeman Norfolk.
Okay. Lily?
So life, family, freedom. Life, the CHP is Canada's only federal party committed to the defense of innocent human life from conception until natural death. Life is the first and most important human right. Without life, no other right has meaning. Family, the CHP is committed to the restoration and protection of the natural family. We believe in marriage between one man and one woman in a lifelong commitment. We believe that children do best when they have both a father and a mother. Freedom. Human freedom is essential for life. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to succeed in business, to own property. All these are part of what made Canada a great place to live and raise a family. Freedom of conscience is one of the most important freedoms. When citizens are forced to violate their own consciences, our nation becomes conscienceless, and every vile and degenerate action becomes possible. A government that ignores the consciences of its citizens becomes tyrannical and evil. The CHP will defend right to life, the role of the family, and the responsibility for freedom. In this election, I urge you, do not waste your vote by voting for a party you do not agree with. Vote according to your beliefs, values, and morals. Vote for a party you can stand next to before God. We have a God who is strong and mighty, and his purpose will stand if only we stand with him. I am Lily Eggink, bringing respect for life and truth to Canadian politics. You can find my contact information on the candidates page of chp.ca. Thank you all for attending tonight.
Thank you to our candidates for your thoughtful conversation tonight. Now you're allowed to clap. Such a good job, guys. Our thanks also go to the volunteers that worked so hard putting this evening together, and to all of you for being a great audience. We couldn't have done this without the Delhi and District Chamber of Commerce and Cornerstone Association of Realtors. Thank you in particular to our fabulous bell ringing skills down here in the corner. And thank you to our interpreter today. Don't forget to get out and vote. Election Day is Monday, April 28th. Please refer to the Elections Ontario website for advanced poll locations and times. Everybody have a safe night.